It's another Tutorial Tuesday, everybody. Go ahead and ask your questions right down there about photography, exposure details, being self-employed, doing this for a living. What do you want to know? The first question reads, I don't want to necessarily be a family photographer. I want to take pictures of my farm and sell those as prints or sell the images to companies as stock. Do you have any tips for that? And I sure do, and we'll get into that in the next video. The first thing that you'll want to do is on the stock photography side, just taking pictures of your farm and selling those to companies, is you'll want to see what other people are doing out there. So look at Shutterstock.com or Getty Images and see what kind of images are coming up for farms. The next thing that you want to do is evaluate your own images and compare those against what's already out there in the stock world. If they're not up to par, I can guarantee you that the stock agencies won't take them. When you're dealing with stock agencies, you can't just deal with, this is a good enough image. Stock agencies will turn that around and throw it right back in your lap. You need to make sure that your images are sharp, they adhere to compositional guidelines, or the image isn't getting through. The last thing with stock agency photography is stock agencies usually have a portfolio review, and they can be very, very brutal. So if you're very sensitive about your images, I wouldn't recommend doing it. Onto the consumer side of things, selling images of your farm to people on Facebook or Instagram or from your website, wherever. The big thing there is just make sure you're marketing. Make sure people know that you're selling prints of your farm. The last thing here about selling prints of your farm to consumers is just set up your price list. And then past that, remember that a good stock print may not be a good consumer print, and a good consumer print may not be a good stock print. The next question reads, last minute tips for my photography exhibit. My answer to that is take a deep breath, relax, stay calm. Past that, get ready to hand out business cards, shake hands, and book shoots. This next question is a really deep question. It's very fundamental at the heart of our photography. And it reads, how do you keep getting that creative shot? I'll go into that in the next couple videos. How do you continue to get that creative shot? By doing things that continue to be creative, by challenging yourself creatively, stepping outside of your comfort zone. You ever shot a cello? Neither have I. Just do it. Learn from it. How about taking an old saddle and light painting it? I've never done that, so I did it, and I learned from the process, and I felt creative doing it. It's the process of continuing to do things that keeps us creative. The last part of this question reads, I go out and I look at other people's work and I think to myself, why didn't I get an angle or a subject like that? That's great because it sparks creativity within you, and it should. For me, the way that I use my focus is I use individual focus points. In other words, I float my focal point, I put that on my subject, I half press the shutter to gain focus, and then I take the picture. Another popular focusing method on Canon cameras is called AI Servo. It's a predictive focusing method where you put the focus point on the subject and you hold the shutter button halfway down and the camera will focus near and far as the subject moves. There is a couple different ways to deal with something like this. Number one, you can have exclusivity in your contract stating that you're the professional photographer at the event, and if he's known for doing this kind of thing, you can have organizers come and ask him to stop shooting. The other way to deal with something like this is through professional courtesy. And what I mean by that is actually going up and talking to the person, telling them what you're there to do, and then also telling them how their actions affect you. By way of example, in high school rodeos, you can be the assigned photographer, and any one of these photographers will tell you, along the sidelines, there are dozens and dozens of photographers with longer lenses. You just got to do your job and get it done. The question here really isn't about pricing per session as much as it is about pricing for yourself, covering your costs and expenses while also making a living and making a profit at this. So go ahead and swipe up and go to my YouTube channel where I address that. How's this to start your Wednesday morning? There's a couple late comments and questions that I'll address here real quick, but to answer that question right there, well, it's because of you guys. By shooting in the dark, I presume that you're meaning shooting fireworks or the Milky Way or lightning or something like that. And I addressed that a couple weeks ago on a Tutorial Tuesday, so I'm putting the link to my YouTube page and go to 7 minutes 20 seconds. No problem on the late question. They'd be my 70 to 200 version 2. my 16 to 35 version 3, and the 50mm 1.4 version 1.